50% of that facility is getting paid automatically. And so, so I love the fact that like on day 5 of the month, I can have most of my rent. I don't have to chase anybody. I love the fact that I don't have to go ask a judge if I can kick someone's stuff out.
I'd like to show you why knowing your why is the start of your journey. Without a strong why, it can be so difficult to reach your maximum potential. My name is Dr. Jason Ballara, and every week I meet with real estate investors and mindset specialists that are taking action in order to build a life according to their own terms. We will break down what drives successful people and allows them to achieve at such a high level. If you are a professional wanting to break through, or simply someone that wants to hear an inspiring story, the Know Your Why podcast is made for you. Hi everyone, I'm Jason Ballara, and this is the Know Your Why podcast. Today I'm here with Travis Baucom. Travis is a self-storage investor as well as a real estate coach. So Travis, first I want to say thanks for coming on the show today. I really appreciate you taking the time out and coming to talk to me. I'm looking forward to this conversation.
Yeah, man, always like talking about real estate.
Yeah, of course, as we all do, it seems, in this space. So it'll be great. Why don't we just start? But tell us about your background. Tell us kind of, where you started, how you got into real estate and self-storage and all of that.
Yeah, back in like 2009 through 11, I worked for a company and I drove a lot, over 40,000 miles in the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex, 40,000 miles a year. And I started listening to radio shows. That was pre-podcast. And I was like, man, these guys are buying houses and doing this and making this. Like, why am I'm here making $45,000-$50,000 a year? These guys don't sound like they're much smarter than me. And so I started reading books, read over 50 books on how to buy real estate, specifically houses. And then we moved to a new town in 2012. And I was like, I'm not going to go get a job. I'm just going to flip real estate. And so I own real estate. And so got lucky, made some good contacts. They connected me to a bank. We had just a little bit of money in the account, and I took all my retirement money, which wasn't a lot. It was like $3,000, and we used that, and we bought our first house, fixed it up, had a renter in there before our mortgage payment was due, and me and my wife thought that was really cool. And we're like, how many more can we do this? And so I went back to the banker, and he's like, well, we can't give you another loan, but you can go to this other guy. And eventually, like, I had like 5 or 6 banks in my little town here that was lending me money. And then as that kind of progressed, I discovered hard money. And then it was just like gasoline on a fire. From 2015 to 2018, we bought over 400 houses. And then I was worn out at the end of 2018, as you can imagine. And then I was like, there's got to be an easier way to do this. And so I started selling all the houses, and that's how we ended up getting into the storage space. Is I was like, what's the easiest and lowest defaulting asset class out there? And in my research, looking at REITs, it was clearly by a long shot, it was self-storage. And so that's how I ended up getting into storage.
So you started, I guess, maybe similar to what a lot of people, although it sounds like you just decided to go all in right from the beginning. So you're on that single family residential side of things, and it sounds like at first you were not necessarily just flipping, but you were, I guess it wasn't called BRRRR then, but if you were renovating and renting them out to people. So how were you doing both, sort of buy and hold as well as flipping?
Yeah, well, I was just going to buy and hold. I really like that concept of growing wealth. But the hard thing about buying and holding is you have to have a crap ton of houses that make, $4,000 a month. If you're cash flowing $200 a month on a single family home, you're going to need, 20 of those to make what a teacher makes. And that's a lot of leverage. That's a lot of risk and a lot of stress. And so what we started doing is once those 4 or 5 banks are like, hey, we can't lend you any more money until you pay this loan off or until it gets seasoned a little bit. I was like, well, I got a lot of equity in this one. It's not rented out yet. Let me sell this one. And, I made like 22,000 on my first flip. And I was like, oh, like this is nice. And so essentially, ideally what I wanted to do is for every 2 houses I bought, I wanted to keep one. But I kind of enjoyed just kind of having the money and turning it on, because the rentals I was owning they were Class C, kind of crappy rentals. Like I remember buying a duplex with the credit card. That's how cheap it was. It was like $30,000. I just cash advanced it, and then used the money, then went and refinanced it. But that sucker was rented out for $1,100, but it was basically criminals that lived in it, and so they eventually got arrested. And I had to, then I was like, I don't have any. I was like so broke just owning rental property. I was like, I don't know how to fix this thing up to rent it out again. So I had to do what I did what I could, and then I rented it out to this sweet lady. But yeah, I just realized that, like, real estate is a great wealth vehicle, but it doesn't do a good job as far as holding real estate. It doesn't do a good job at cash flowing it, enough to make it worth it. And so, selling a house, making 20 grand and being like, all I have to do is like 4 of these a year. And then 80 grand. My wife was working as a nurse at that time. That's $130,000 take home. This is great. And so that's kind of how we started, but it slowly ended up being where we would flip about 5 houses, maybe wholesale 1 house, and then keep 1 house. And then, so we ended up having about 72 rentals in 2018 when I started unwinding everything. On top of that, though, we had 20, 30 house flips going around that time that we had to, the way I unwound the entire thing is I let my staff go, and I'm like, I'm just going to handle the whole thing, and then I'll have cash at the end of it. And so it was a pretty stressful year at the end of 2000. Basically, 2019 was a very stressful year. I was knee deep in the whole thing for 12 months and didn't know what month it was, didn't know what day it was. I was just waking up doing what I had to do to unwind everything and start over with a pile of cash, or at least that was the hope.
Yeah. Well, I mean, a couple of really good points there. I think that, one is kind of the scalability of single family homes and residential, and why a lot of people move on to commercial real estate, just because it's, you can do all of these transactions. You have 72 houses. I mean, probably at that point, cash flow was pretty decent, but at the end of the day, that's a lot to manage. And even just to exit them was a lot of work for you. So I think that's a good point for people to understand. And I'm not suggesting don't do residential, or where you start wherever you want to start, but understanding that's what I think not an uncommon story in the space. But I think what you said, that I keep thinking this, and I guess it maybe it makes me feel validated when other people say it, but the cash flow in real estate is, it's a good goal to have, but it's not something that, unless you started off with a whole huge chunk of capital to begin with to get invested, you're not going to start there. You're not going to start with a ton of cash flow. And so it's something that, looking at that from a wealth building vehicle, and you have to find something that's going to help generate that capital to grow the amount of passive wealth or passive income that you can have. And for you, that was, you were flipping some of the houses and then holding some of the house. And so people, I think, a lot of times just think you can flip the switch and go from having active income to passive income, and it's maybe not quite that easy. And I think maybe people think that because sometimes I think it feels like that's what gets said by real estate investor. Just look, everything can be passive. You still got to make some money to get it invested, and then over time, that ratio of active income to passive income can sort of flip flop. So,
Sure,
I think that's a important concept that you mentioned, and I think worth pointing out. And another, I mean, you said you got tired. You said that 2019 was a tough year, just getting kind of out of that, and you wanted to get you done research, decided you want to get into self-storage. How did you, aside from sort of unloading everything you had, how did you make that transition? What was kind of the process for you?
Yeah, I would say the process was I was tired of having real estate that had people in it. Going back to having 72 rentals, I remember one month we had an $18,000 collective maintenance bill. So that was like a few ACs had to be replaced. There was a grease fire at one of our small apartments, and I was like, man, it's just like these people cause so much chaos. And so, I was like, I'm either going to get out of real estate or I'm going to find something that doesn't have people involved, or at least people living in my property. So that's one thing I like about storage is on any given day, you can have a 50,000 square foot storage facility and you have 3 people show up and get their stuff, or open it up and get one thing or another. You don't have people just kind of living there, or like me, or loitering around and causing issues. And so the transition was primarily due to exhaustion. I was like, I have 72 rentals. Sometimes I make $1, sometimes I don't make any. I have to use my house flipping business to pay for the rentals. The goal would be that the house flipping business helps grow the rentals, but it was the opposite. It was just keeping them around. It wasn't every month that we had a huge maintenance issue, but it was we never felt free to pay ourselves anything from that business, due to the fact that we could just have at any given time an AC goes out, any given time a house fire, any given time a tenant destroys the house and leaves or breaks the window or whatever. And so realizing how miserable that was, and realizing that people I knew in the community that had 200, 300 houses were just hardened. They were just cold people. I just wanted to get out of anything that resembled, that could cause me to, end up like them, or, cause all the stress. And so the great thing about storage is no one lives there. It's non-habitable. And sometimes even now, like we even run our facilities remotely, so there's not even a manager there. It's just a building with a gate, or buildings with gates and fences. And so I really liked the idea that someone would pay me less than $200, and I had 300 of these units in one location, and that it can be essentially ran in any part of the world. I can run it through a software program. I know at a moment's notice who's late or who has paid. We make all of our tenants, when we buy facilities, there's a lot of cash and checks that are getting paid. But when new tenants come in, we make them ACH or use auto pay credit cards. So like after a year, for the most part, 50% of that facility is getting paid automatically. And so I love the fact that like on day 5 of the month, I can have most of my rent. I don't have to chase anybody. I love the fact that I don't have to go ask a judge if I can kick someone's stuff out. It's non-judicial eviction. So like basically you have to post, you have to give them 10 days, and you got to post in the newspaper. Then 7 days later, you post again in the newspaper. And then as short as 23 days, you can get people's stuff out. Right now, given it's a softer environment, we aren't doing that. But, in 2021, like when we had 100% occupancy, no matter how much we were increasing the rents, we were like, okay, we got to get this person out so we can get someone who actually wants to pay. Now we're given some time. We're being a little bit more gracious in that regard. But ultimately, like I know how much money is being made by the 5th day. There's typically less than 2% collections that we have to make portfolio wide. And it's so much better, primarily because all the things I mentioned, but also you just have metal and concrete, and those doors come with a 30-year manufacturer's warranty, the overhead doors. So if they break, you just have to call a service tech out, and it's like $60. And if it's out of warranty, because it's such an old facility that we bought, you're looking at $280 to fix that, and then it's going to work again for another 30 years. And so there's just hardly any maintenance. And as I mentioned before, like with the housing business, the rental housing business, we had tons of maintenance, so much maintenance. And we had to have a construction director on staff just to deal with the maintenance and the house flips and all that stuff. It's way more simple. Like I had 9 people working for me in the house flipping business, and I have just me and some remote managers that manage all of our 900 units that we have. So it's great. I think it's great. The margins are really fat, which has helped a whole lot, given that interest rates are going higher and higher, seems like every month. Yeah. And so we still have a pretty fat margin, and we're still cash flowing, as opposed to a lot of multifamily. If you read the news, is really starting to hurt right now.
Yeah. Yeah. It's especially the timing. I think of when you got in, I think, with everything as the market heated up, self-storage got really hot too. And probably the things that are were purchased, within the last year plus, not as good of a margin, but I know a number of people in self-storage, and they moved from, like yourself, either residential or they moved from multifamily, just for a lot of the same reasons that you just listed off. It's just the ease. I mean, I think one of the biggest challenges I find in multifamily is water, whether that's inside or outside, right? So your plumbing or the rain or whatever it is outside, like those are the things that cause the most problems. And you don't really have to worry about that in storage. There's not plumbing, there's not.
We don't have a water bill.
Yeah, it's like properties. Generally metal roofs. Like it's like, and even if a little water gets in, like it's an easy fix. So it's kind of I think an important thing for people to understand, sort of in terms of management. And you talked a little bit about sort of the ability to manage remotely. And I know, again, from other people that in the self-storage space, that that's kind of the model now, right? Is to essentially not have someone on site and have almost everything done, leveraging technology. So what do you talked about sort of knowing your payments are in, getting everything around ACH. How do you handle, I guess, all of the leasing is online? How do you handle all of that without having anyone kind of on site? Like, what if something goes wrong? What are some scenarios you've run into?
Yeah, from the leasing side, we have a QR code at every facility that you can that says rent a unit here, and all you have to do is take a screenshot or get your camera out and take a picture of that QR code. It will send you to our website, and then you can completely, from the front page all the way to the last page, you can sign a lease, get your unit number, fill out your credit card information, upload your insurance information. If you don't have insurance information, we can offer you insurance on the unit. We require insurance to be on each unit. We'd rather them use their homeowner's insurance, but if not, we gladly charge people for that. And then if there's any issue, so all we have to do on the leasing side is actually finalize that lease, just confirm that it's not some bot, like a robot or a fake person, but it's actually someone. We have to call them and confirm their driver's license and their social security number, and then at that point we give them a gate code, and they can get in. If the facility even has a gate, give them a gate code and they can get in and put all their stuff in a unit. On as far as if there's something that goes wrong or a tenant doesn't pay or something like that, we have a fractional facilities manager that goes and puts, overlocks or those red locks that, have a code that no one knows until they pay their bills. If there's like lawn maintenance or lights that are out or something like that, the facilities manager typically takes care of that stuff. Yeah. Oh, and that's fractional. So it's like, $300, $400, $500 a month per facility.
That's great. And what do you, so the fractional management, is that, like, I guess back up a little bit, what markets are you in? Are these all kind of close together, or are you sort of in different markets, and that the fractional management, it works in different markets? How does that set up?
Yeah, fractional management, we don't have, most of our facilities are not close to each other. We just buy where we feel like good data is, and so there's certain things that we look after to go, okay, that fits our criteria of a good property. We have a facility in Oklahoma City. That's a huge RV and boat facility right off the Highway 35, I-35. We have a facility in a small town in Texas called Waxahachie, which is South DFW. It's right on Highway 287. That's a real important thing for us, is to get as big of a street as possible or a road as possible. And then we own all the facilities in a small town in West Texas, and there's 5 facilities in that market. That's the only market we have an in-house manager, and she's only there 20 hours a week. She does other things during the week other than work for me. And the reason why we still have a manager in-house there is there's some people in that small of a town that either can't get bank accounts or choose not to get bank accounts, so they still pay in cash, which I think is baffling. They have iPhones, but they don't have bank accounts. And so and then so as far as the facilities managers go, we have, each facility has a fractional facilities manager, and I don't even know those people's names. We have in Lufkin, Texas, which is a really small town in Texas. We have like a call center and some women, that older women or single mom type women that manage our facilities for a small fee, and they can manage more than one facility at a time.
Awesome.
Oh, and they're in charge of the facilities manager. So
sure. And are you syndicating these, or these are all just personal portfolio?
We syndicate every single one. We like that model. We like if you're a doctor or a dentist, you have a couple options. If you want to diversify your portfolio, you can invest. You can go buy a house, and then you're going to have to deal with all the stuff we've been talking about from on a minor scale, or you can invest in your fund or in my deals, and you have a fractional ownership of a very large commercial property that cash flows really well, and then 5 to 7 years from now you double your money, or historically that's what we've had. Who knows what's going to happen over the next 5 or 7 years, but
yeah.
And that is a truly passive position as opposed to going and buying a house. And furthermore, you'll make more money and have less hassle in investing in your syndications or my syndications, because a house is only worth what the house next door is worth. Whereas a storage facility is worth whatever the income is divided by the cap rate, and a multifamily property is also valued at whatever the income is divided by a cap rate. And so, that's why we do that. We like to bring on other people. We feel like people want to invest in things, they just don't know how. Furthermore, there's a lot of, in my opinion, there's a lack of integrity in the real estate industry, especially those who are posting online. And I feel like our firm and probably your firm bring to the table a large amount of integrity, knowing that we're not going to take off with your money, knowing that we're not going to, if things get tight, we're going to work on it and wrestle with it, as opposed to go like, okay, we're just going to scrap the money and go live in Costa Rica, like some of the more recent Houston multifamily syndicators who failed at have done. And so yeah, I think there's a purpose for syndicators that have integrity, and there's a purpose for the options we allow for investors to invest in.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I think I know the story you're talking about in Houston. There, people, without getting into all the details and anything, I think people see those headlines and it scares people away, and it's frustrating, as when you're operating with integrity and doing everything you can to make sure your investors stay whole and make money and all of this, and then you see things like that, because it scares people, and it scares them, the less experienced people from it's already hard enough for them to know that those opportunities are available to them. But then if all they hear about them is that, sort of those big the failures of some people that were acting without integrity, that's a huge deal. That's a huge blow to not just the real estate operators, but other investors, and people that to see these opportunities. So yeah, I wish it weren't so, but I guess that's probably true in any industry, that there are some bad actors that are potentially putting a stain on it. But I think being transparent, acting with integrity, keeping investors at investor interests out front always is key. Travis, you do some coaching as well?
Yeah, very little. The coaching is primarily to find new syndicators that want to that don't have the ability to be a key principal, or sign on large amounts of debt. And so I don't really push that too much these days. But yeah, I'm happy to teach anybody. We charge a pretty high fee just because we want you to come in, be super serious, and then when we do a deal, you tend to get that fee plus more back, plus you get equity in the deal, and you get to be a part of a larger deal.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's a fairly common thing in the industry is people that it's almost like I don't know, speeding up the learning curve. Joining a coaching program allows you to get into deals with people who are already doing them. As you mentioned, also finding someone who can be a key principal, I think, is
Sure.
a lot of times when you're first starting out, that's going to be a big hurdle in terms of the lending environment, both from a net worth and experience standpoint. So it is a valuable service. Well, let me switch gears, Travis. I want to ask you the questions I ask every guest. The first one being related to the name of the show is Know Your Why. So what is your why? What's driving you? What's kind of keeping you going forward towards more and more success?
Yeah, I would say every time that I get go through a series of, I guess, go through the valley or go through a series of pain, dealing with issues, that sort of thing. I keep coming back to like, man, I'm really glad that it's, even though it's painful and uncomfortable, I'm really glad that it's me that is in charge of this money and also in charge of turning this thing around, because I don't think there's a situation so far that I've not been able to turn around in real estate. And it's definitely not roses and palm trees or whatever the term is. It can be very difficult. And so going back to my comment about being a man of integrity and also a syndicator, if you give me your money, I'm going to make sure that I take it incredibly personal, and it's hard for me if things aren't going the way it's supposed to, because I want to make sure I reached out. I want to make sure that I get you the results that I'm telling you I can get. And so I would say my why is, outside of my family and providing for them and being there for them, it would be, I want to be there for my investors. I want a deep relationship with them. I want them to trust me, and I want them to know that they made the right decision and that they're not just putting money into whoever says you can get the biggest return. So I would say my why is taking care of accredited investors.
Yeah, fantastic. Tell us something about yourself that maybe isn't common knowledge, a special skill, a hobby, just something to let listeners know you a little better.
Yeah, I try to mountain bike as much as possible. I'm a pretty outdoor enthusiast. I like to camp. I like to overland. I like to mountain bike. I got 4 kids. Love my 4 kids. Are super fun to hang out with most of the time. And then me and my wife started a school 5 years ago. She is just stepped down and hired a principal to kind of further the vision further than she can take it. But we started a school based off of entrepreneurship and STEM education. We felt like the current Ford Rockefeller industrial complex education that happens in a public school and even some private schools wasn't really serving our personal kids. And so even instead of just homeschooling them, we decided to start a small school. And so that's a big thing that not a lot of people know about.
That's awesome.
And and so probably gonna keep going, but that's good enough for now.
No, that's great. I mean, the school thing, I think, and we've talked about it on the podcast and past episodes too, is just kind of the traditional education is probably lacking for sure in a lot of areas, specifically business and entrepreneurship, and just the number of financial literacy, all of the stuff that, quite frankly, is it's probably some of the most valuable things that you could learn as a young person to carry forward in life skills. So I think that's great. It's hugely important to have that available to people that want it. It really should be part of probably any curriculum. But again, if it's not, do something about it. Don't sit and complain. You actually took action and created a solution. So that's great. When people hear this and they want to reach out to you, what's the best way?
Yeah, the best way is to go to our website, which is investinstoragedeals.com. Scroll down to the bottom and fill out a quick survey, and 3 or 4 things you need to fill out, and then you'll be added to our investor list, and we'll send you our deals when we have them. And if you want to reach out to me, just ask me questions, you can do what you did, Jason, and reach out to me on Instagram at Travis_Baucom. And I check that thing often, probably too much. And so I'll definitely see it, definitely respond to you, and be happy to talk.
Final question, Travis. What piece of advice would you give to someone who wants to start in real estate? They're listening to this and they hear your story and they want to follow in your footsteps. What would you tell them?
Yeah, there's never going to be a right time there's never a right time to start. You just need to start. The time to start is now. You can't wait for the market to be perfect. You can't wait for your finances to be perfect. As previously mentioned, I started with we had barely little of anything, and I had $2,500, and I got lucky and found a bank that would lend me basically 100% of the loan, and that was in 2012, and the bank was probably sweating for revenue. So just my advice would be just get started. And getting started, like going and making an offer on a house is pretty daunting, or a piece of property is pretty daunting. So just read a book. If you haven't read any books, read a book, and then after reading a book, take another step of action, and take another step of action. A lot of it is just baby steps, and that continues. I've been doing this 12 years now, and sometimes I get so burned out or I get so discouraged that I'm like, all right, what is the one thing I need to do today that will help me get to my goals? And sometimes that's all I do. And so taking action, realizing that it's not perfect, you will make mistakes, you probably will lose money, but knowing that if you just don't quit, eventually it all works out.
Yeah, no, it's great advice. It certainly, it can get hard at times. That's the reality of this business. But I think at the end of the day, really, really worthwhile, worth having these skills and being able to really just be in control of your time, what your life looks like. So it's great advice. Thanks for coming on the show, Travis. I appreciate it. I appreciate everything that you shared with us. I think the listeners are going to get a ton of value out of that. So thank you so much.
Awesome. Great. Enjoyed it.
Yeah. And folks listening, I know you're going to love it. Make sure you check out Travis. We'll put all of his information in the show notes, and please like, rate, and review the show so we can get more great guests like Travis. Thanks. Have a great day. I'd like to show you why knowing your why is the start of your journey. Without a strong why, it can be so difficult to reach your maximum potential. My name is Dr. Jason Ballara, and every week I meet with real estate investors and mindset specialists that are taking action in order to build a life according to their own terms. We will break down what drives successful people and allows them to achieve at such a high level. If you are a professional wanting to break through, or simply someone that wants to hear an inspiring story, the Know Your Why podcast is made for you.